All right, what's up, everyone? My name is Tyler, better known as Tyman128 on Sputnik Music. Welcome back to another Sputnik interview. Today, I am joined by Jackal Twins. They are a three-piece experimental mathcore band based out of New England. They just had their debut album, Cusco, released back on March 7th. Guys, welcome.
Thanks for
What's
having
up,
us.
man? Thank you.
As, hey, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. Before we get into the meat of the interview and stuff like that, can you guys briefly introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Ben Russell. I play drums and vocals.
I'm Mike. I play guitar and mostly yell.
I'm Dante. I play bass.
Awesome, guys. So before we get into Cusco and all that, I want to go back to 2017, back when Jackal Twins first started. Can you guys tell me, how the band formed and kind of what the purpose and motivation was to starting this band in the first place?
You want to take that one, Ben?
Yes, yeah, you can jump in if you want, but I basically Mike and I were buddies for years, and I was in another band for years, so I was like pretty busy with that. And there was this one time where I was home from tour, and Mike and I got together just to jam, and we wrote an 11-minute long song like in an instant. Like we we just naturally write really well together really quickly. So that happened, and then we kind of just went and did our thing, and then eventually I came back home to Massachusetts where Mike lived at the time, and we just started jamming. Because I think I stopped playing music for a couple months, and Mike had been in a ton of bands with Dante actually, and so yeah, we just started writing songs. Um, and then what happened, Mike?
Well, I was basically trying to rope you into being in a band, but you were like, I just want to I want to just play to see where it goes. And I'm like, nah, I want to do this. So I was just, I was like treading lightly, just like, oh yeah, we'll just have little jam sessions. And then it turned into, writing a lot of songs really fast, but it didn't, I don't know if it really became like a serious thing where we were like, all right, we're actually gonna finish these songs and record them. Like, I don't know how long that took before we decided, it was more official. It could have been like a year. I don't really remember the timeline. It's been such a, like a kind of, I don't know, like a long process.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing I'll add is like I was really hyped on two pieces at the time for some reason, which I'd never been, except I really like the White Stripes, but I think at the time like 68 was happening.
Mhm.
The Black Keys, I love the Black Keys. So I was like, what if we did this like crazy math band and Mike used octave pedals and we just went wicked hard. So like it was just the two of us for a little while. And then Mike and I were both like, I think this needs bass. And then, Mike had always played with Dante and was just like, this guy is like the greatest bassist. And because like even a great bass player, like sometimes the whole mathcore thing is it's just a specific like breed of person. So we played with him and he's just, fucking amazing. So he came in and yeah, man, COVID
When did,
happened. That put the
yeah.
brakes on us for a while. Sorry, my what?
Dante, when did what was it, 2018 that
I
you
think
came?
I think 2019. It was probably like after. It was like a couple of years. Uh,
Yeah.
I remember showing up to the uh, the warehouse that shall not be named, that you guys were playing in. I mean, we were in a project in that same building, but um, you told me to come check it out, and I came, and I was just absolutely blown away. And I remember when you guys were playing like the infant version of Spoken to Time.
Mm.
I was like, I went into this like hypnotic state, like oddly enough. Like I when I listen to music, sometimes like closing my eyes is like the best way to experience it. And I just I felt this weird sense of calm And I had told you guys, I was like, dude, like that felt like a lullaby to me. And I remember Ben was just like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I
Like,
remember that too.
he's like, dude, are you what? Like, I don't understand. I'm like, I don't understand either. But
Yeah.
music that is like that, for some reason, it just lines up with the synapses in my brain, and just how my brain is wired to just be all over the place. It just all lined up, and I'm like, I need to be a part of this. Like, and I asked Mike because I didn't really know, I didn't know Ben too well. I had met you maybe 3 or 4 times, um, and I was just like, I was like, Mike, I really want to play bass. And just listening to Ben's sensibility with how he played drums, it was very like it was very bottom like, um, and I loved that. I loved that there was this like there was no double bass, and there was this like sense of grounding in his approach to the chaos. And I was just like, bass needs to be a part of this. And I just, I'm a really big fan of um, the rhythm section really locking in. Like they got to be like the best of friends. So, in the music, they got to really, really do something special for me to just be like, and I'm like, I feel like I could do that here. And yeah, it was truly incredible, and didn't know it would go this far.
Yeah. Music for meditation. That's what we've set out to make.
Yeah, in my psychotic mind.
Yeah. And one last thing I'll add, I think with Mike, like I think I've been in bands my whole life, and I think I was at a point where I was like, am I going to do something like just by myself and just try something else? But I think with Mike, I was just like, he's like the only person. If I have a crazy idea, which I have a lot of insane ideas, he always gets it like really fast. I think I was like, dude, like Mike's fucking amazing, and he can keep up, And a lot of people, um, you have to explain something for like an hour, and he gets it like if it's a really crazy idea, he gets it pretty fast, and that's really nice.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so obviously, like you mentioned, I mean, this has been in the works for a pretty long time at this point. Breaks being halted during COVID, stuff like that, bringing Dante in 2019, a couple of years after. And so with all this time in between and stuff from when it began to when this album released, kind of what was your approach to songwriting, especially early on when you guys were just thinking through some ideas and kind of figuring out the chemistry between you guys, and how was that kind of process in moving in songwriting up until today?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the song. I mean, every song has a bit of a different story. Some of them are, um, riffs that I came up with, and then kind of brought to Ben, and a lot of it was stuff we wrote together from just jam sessions, or some of it was very specific things that Ben would come, like he was just saying, like he would have an idea for whether it's a certain pattern, or he would even have an idea of like a melody, or even just like a dissonant kind of general idea. And I had never really played with a drummer who had kind of ideas for riffs before. So sometimes I would end up playing something that I would never normally play, but it always kept it fresh. And then I would always kind of just add my own flair to it. So it really depended, like, we could almost go through riff by riff or part by part or song by song, and each thing would have its own kind of little bit of story to it, or there's not really one method, I would say. Um, like Harbor Delirium, for instance, was actually like most like the first half of it was mostly I just drank a lot of coffee one day and just kind of like wrote a bunch of riffs like in the moment, but recorded myself, and then I didn't really know what I was playing, but I was just kind of into it, and then I taught myself the recording that I had made spontaneously. So that was like a method that was fun to do because it was something I had played, but I had to sort of relearn my own thing, which I sometimes end up having to do. And then basically the whole second half was all Ben's ideas. So it's kind of this, yeah, I don't know. That's just like an example of that's almost like cut right in half. As far as like the basic structure of and ideas of the song. And then Dante came in and basically laid base ideas over the entire thing that were all just his like way of interpreting the songs, which is like totally brought them to a new space. And like that song especially, it's like I can't imagine it without without like the low end.
And also, alongside that, with your approach to songwriting musically and stuff like that, when you look more at the lyrical content behind it and kind of how those mesh together, you got the instrumentation, the lyrics kind of coming together. What was the story and concept behind Cusco?
I don't know, Ben, how much do should we say about it?
Um, well, I mean, I just lost you guys for a second, so I don't know what I missed, but
We were talking
I
about how to approach the songwriting, and I use like Harbor Delirium as an example of like basically splitting like ideas and just like meshing them together. But yeah, I know he was asking about Cusco, like um the name lyrically.
yeah, well, I think to piggyback on the last question, I mean, I like to joke uh the whole album is kind of like voice memos in a way. I mean, not literally, but it's a lot of jams. A lot of them are like ideas we brought to the table, but we would just jam and just voice memos. I would just find them and be like, oh, let's put this here and let's put this there. And like a lot of the songs were written together, and then we would like be like, it doesn't really go with this one, let's put it on this one, and let's take this piece from this song. But so a lot of it was just like cobbling it together.
Yeah.
And the album, you know, was originally this very long. All the songs that you have were on it, but there was also like a bunch of other songs because I wanted to be like this really expansive, like huge, long thing with all these other different sounds. Like we had like a piano song with violin, and but we ended up just cutting those because we just didn't have time. But one of those songs was called Cusco and was originally the last song, which is kind of going into your next question. Was about a trip that Mike and I took to Cusco. We went to Lima, Peru, and then we flew to Cusco, and we were just like, dude, we just like fell in love with that city. Like we loved it so much. Mike wrote one of the lyrics to the songs on the plane ride, either to Peru or to Cusco. I can't remember. Um,
Yeah, it was
that whole
on the
experience. Yeah. Which song was it?
Ransack Soul is written on the flight. It was this really rinky-dink plane, and I had like really like intensely impacted molars and wisdom teeth, and I still have never gotten my wisdom teeth out, and they still like hurt a lot sometimes. But the elevation there was like giving me such a headache, and I was just like writing down this whole idea, and it was the flight to Cusco. And I think I finished writing it while we were there, but that song is kind of like almost could be like a title track in a way because it was actually written there. But yeah,
Yeah.
we really fell in love with that city for sure.
Yeah, and the for me personally, a lot of the like lyrical and musical inspiration came from that trip. I mean, a lot of the stuff was written before, but also it was happening during, and then there was a lot of cobbling, like I said, after the fact. And so that whole experience kind of like leaked into my mind and affected the whole process. So that's I don't know. I kind of see the album as a capturing of that time period in our lives, and that trip was kind of the centerpiece. And it was also Cusco is the capital of the Inca Empire, which I don't know. Like I love researching things like that, like the Inca Empire, Aztecs, and stuff. So I don't know. It was funny, like somebody was like starting to make jokes about the Emperor's New Groove, which is one of my favorite movies, and I totally forgot about that, and I didn't even think of that.
Me
But
either.
people were just like giving us shit for that, but it was funny.
Oh, that was the best. Cusco's poison.
Yeah. I guess that was inevitable. We kind of asked for it.
Yeah,
No, that's great. And obviously I think one of the main things that stands out with the album is kind of like you guys said, it's like a mixture of all these different things, you know. It's kind of hard to nail down one specific genre because you have so much going on. You got your mathcore, you got your experimental stuff, you got your more like ambient, sort of atmospheric, weird stuff going on with guitar and bass kind of interplay there. You got some jazzy at times, kind of moments and stuff like that. So there's a lot going on, you know, genre wise. And so I'm just curious for each of you guys, what are kind of your biggest influences when it comes to songwriting or performance in music?
I mean, when we're playing, like Ben was saying, like we would just play and not like we never set out to sort of make a specific type of music, which is really freeing. I mean, we've written, like he was saying, like there's whole songs that really would almost seem even more out of place. Like people are talking about the album like it's so long and it's so like eclectic, and we actually cut out the things that were even more kind of standalone different sounds, um, just in the interest of time, but also to sort of like, I think, almost tailor it towards slightly more heavy music. But we had all kinds of different sounds. So I mean, we just like to, not really overthink that, I guess, and just play and then just see what happens. So, I mean, I think I'm not thinking of my influences as I'm playing, but they're like absolutely coming through. So for me, I mean, we all three have completely different influences, but then there's an overlap. Like if you would look at a pie chart, there'd be like, three circles that are all kind of coming together with like certain bands maybe, or, artists. And, for me personally, I think, Tom Waits is a huge influence for me as a musician and songwriter, um, and then we all grew up in like the heavier music scene. I grew up in like the Christian hardcore metalcore scene. So like when Under Oath was coming up and all of that, it's like I was like 12 years old. My brother had a whole CD collection and I was just picking CDs off the shelves. So I was exposed to all kinds of different music from a really young age. Um, I heard Dillinger Escape Plan when I was like 12. I heard 43% Burnt, and like it like broke my brain. I never knew music could be like that, and I was sort of chasing that high, and like never found that feeling again. And in some ways, I was like always looking for that. So I don't know. I mean, that's some of my influences. I know Me Without You is a overlap for us too. At that band, again from a really young age, 11, 10, 11, 12. They're like one of my favorite bands. So, but yeah, we all have, I think, a bunch of different influences that, come at it from different angles.
yeah. Like feel free to add, guys. But I think for a band, as a band, I would say I would agree. Tom Waits and Dillinger Escape Plan um, were huge. Definitely for the two of us when we were writing, like the Chariot and People Before the March of Flames, Fall of Troy. I mean, but yeah, for me, like personally, like just like with like vocals and stuff, just sort of the some of the singing stuff. Like I think like Nick Drake is one of, if not the biggest influence. I really like very airy kind of singing, almost whispery, like no vibrato, over ethereal parts. And Mike plays a lot of just like really ethereal kind of pretty shit. So like I I thought it worked pretty well. So I would say like for me, Nick Drake is a really big influence for singing, and then like with like the screaming stuff. I mean, heavy low, man. Like My God, I mean, I just love his everything about him on was that record? Everything's watched, everyone's watching. I think that's what it's called. But yeah, those are I would say those are the vocally for me. My influences: Chris Penny, Dillinger Escape Plan as a drummer. I mean, I think he's basically God. Uh, I don't think anybody's ever topped his performance on Calculating Infinity and Miss Machine. I don't think anybody ever will. But yeah, Chris Penny and then Ricky Mazzata from Me Without You, Darren King, Mute Math, like those guys are the best, man. So that's my analyzation of us as a band and then me personally. But what would you say, Dante?
Um, I don't know. I I came at it with like a deep love for the Mars Volta, and I think you guys share pretty similar um, sentiments for the band, even if it's not like certain parts of the discography that we like agree about. Um, you should really listen to us talk about the bands that we love and the discography. It's quite the trip. What we grab from each thing. When I first heard Ben, I thought Bonham and John Theodore, and obviously like Chris Penny from fucking Dillinger. Um, so I kind of like being such a big Juan Alderete fan, like just the way his chemistry with John Theodore was in the the first three albums. Like I just love the way that they just anchor down the chaos. And I think for the lighter parts, or maybe the groovier parts, I really dip into jazz and electronic stuff. Um, so I'll have like certain effects that kind of cater to those camps where I'll have an octave pedal um, that can get into kind of analog synthetic territory. I'm a really big fan of Tim LaFave. Um, he's a bass player out of actually he's from Boston, but he's been in so many bands. He was on the last uh, David Bowie record, Black Star. His performance with that band in particular, the Donny McCaslin band, um, it's just incredible. So I kind of grab a lot of his like his nuances, and I was like, this fits, and it really works and makes sense. The really like disgusting gnarly stuff, I was like, I need these parts to sound like it's like the world is like crashing down. So I kind of went into like the approach of like kind of like Sam Walker from Daughters. He kind of grabs like the low octave pedals, and he plays higher up, but he does these crazy slides. Um, I do a lot of sliding and a lot of certain parts to just make it more like out of control than it already is. I kind of went part by part to see like what does this need? Like what do these parts need? Um,
Yeah,
and like the
you were in
more
a, sorry. Yeah, you were in a unique position to do that because we had demos written
yeah,
out and would send them, and then Dante would listen to them with headphones in his basement and just go like note by note, be like,
yeah,
Yeah.
what possible scales could I take from the heavens and etch into stone
I know.
we would like make so Ben and I are like not like musically classically trained or anything. Like I took piano lessons as a kid, but I don't remember anything. I don't know how to read music. I don't know scales or anything. And so Ben and I would always tease like Dante to be like, "Oh, you're gonna like do your Trojan horse scale over this or something?" Because he would be like, he'd be like talking about like whatever, like triad Floridian, like nonsensical, like like scales that I've never heard of. Send me these like music theory videos that I'd just be like in awe of. But I'm like,
Dante tells us like what the technical term is for like what we're doing. We don't. Yeah,
yeah,
but I forgot. Yeah, I forgot to add with Dante saying the jazz thing. Like we all really like John Coltrane too, and I think
oh yeah,
that's just I don't know, man. Like the fact that both of them love Coltrane, it's just so. I've never had a band like that. So we play Coltrane when we're driving around. Sometimes it's awesome.
Hell yeah. It's
yeah,
very romantic.
Yeah, dude.
Yep.
No, that's awesome, and it's really cool to kind of just see those blend of genres and those blend of influences and stuff. And even though you might not approach something with like the intention of following an influence, I mean, obviously in music, everything kind of shines through, and I think that's great, and it comes out great in Cusco. And kind of looking at it, from the recording side of things, with all the songwriting, kind of being fleshed out going into the recording. I know you guys worked with Kurt Ballou, legend of the scene and stuff like that. And so when you guys went into God City Studios with your instrumentation and stuff like that, what was it like being able to work alongside someone like him and kind of hear his input or feedback or kind of collaboration with you guys during the process of recording the instrumentation?
yeah. Well, initially we had planned on I think several other studios, and Dante brought him up, and it was like, oh yeah, duh, like he's right in Salem. Like why was he not the first person we thought of? I don't know. I remember thinking he was going to be like really expensive or something or really busy. I was just like, oh, there's no way he's so sought after. And then with talking to him, he was really reasonable, and we just had and I can't remember if all three of us had our first call with him, but we really, were sort of particular about who you're going to work with, and then if you can just tell if you're going to sort of vibe well with somebody, right? Like we had our first call and it was just like, went really well, and I think similar goals for the sound that we gravitate towards as far as just or an organic sound. We were all really particular about we want this to not sound like a metal record and not have everything sound polished and replaced, and but we still want it to have like a big sound. We don't want it to sound like, small or and he just seemed like the guy to do it. And so yeah, as far as yeah, I mean, working with him was kind of a dream come true. I mean, when I was a kid, listening to Jane Doe was another sort of like crazy moment for me of just being like, whoa, like I've never heard anything quite like that. I'm like 10 years old, it's like blowing my mind. And then to like just be in a room with him and have, and like, him, make compliments of like the guitar riff I'm playing or something. I was like, this is surreal. And then we were just kind of like buds with them, I feel like by the end of it. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say about it, but it was, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, for me, like I guess like two things come to mind. I think like Mike said, we had like other options on the table, and we've all recorded in studios before, and it's always a different experience. And I've had a bunch of experiences where it's kind of like cold, like not bad experiences, but it's very cold. You get in, you record, they're doing their thing, you're doing your thing. It's just bam, 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 bam. And I think for whatever reason, didn't want to do that again. I kind of wanted to have like fun. And the thing that sold me on Kirk, because I had heard like some Converge. I had listened to like a little bit of Jane Doe. I had one song from another album that I was obsessed with, but I was never like, a super. I didn't really know too much about. I don't think I knew as much about Kurt as Mike and Dante did. So what sold me for Kurt was when we got on the phone with him. He just had like such a good sense of humor. Like he was like fucking hilarious. Like he was making me laugh. He was making you. We were like both cracking jokes, and was just like, oh, like this is gonna be fun. And like he was just a blast. Like he was just so relaxed, and he was just making jokes the whole time. So cool. He likes the coolest movies. Like we like really obscure stuff, and he made these insane references. Like he was like he referenced one of my favorite movies, Dead Man by Jim Jarmusch, which I don't know anybody besides two people who know that movie. He likes Mike's favorite movie called Brazil, which is another very obscure. Like not a lot of people know that. So I think there was just all these moments where we like were like falling in love with Kurt and like, yeah, he's the best man. And
Yeah.
yeah, he was kind of make it was funny. Like he was like cracking jokes and like like I guess I'm a weirdo because like when I started the drums, like I like to record with like silence. I don't like anybody playing. I just like to do it from memory or whatever. And Kurt was like, he's like, you're the first person that's ever done that. Like that's what the like. I think he was getting a kick out of our insanity because in my mind I was like, this is normal, but for him he was like, what are these guys doing? So I think it was fun for him too. But I don't know. He was just so funny, man, and he's just so good. Like Mike said, we wanted a really rock. We wanted the album to sound like a rock record, and he recorded it like a rock record. It sounds. It doesn't sound perfect. It doesn't sound like the drums were, completely like aligned with the click or I don't know. He just made it sound good and real and authentic, which is exactly what we wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was scared shitless. Um, thinking about going to him because it's just like you're playing in front of one of your childhood idols. You know what I mean? So I think, yeah, he was freaking hilarious. Like watching him uh, go through the takes with Ben with just drums, it was hilarious because he's like, so how was that? Like, you know what I mean? Because he doesn't have like a frame of reference. Like he doesn't have a guitar track to go off of to be like, oh, pinpoint this here, this and there. He's just like, how did that feel? you know? So it was like a mystery to him. And I think seeing it unfold was also really funny to us. Because by the time like bass had, guitar was done and then bass was last, when the first track, what was the first track that we did that I
One
completely
Eyed Wolf.
was it
Well, that
one.
was the first track we recorded. I don't know if that's what you did
You
first.
did it. You did it. You recorded in your own order, Dante. But the first song we recorded was One Eyed Wolf. Yeah.
With bass though, was it Spoken to Time? It may have been Spoken to Time,
Maybe. Yeah.
but he was really thrown off by he like stopped for a second. Like it was the loudest silence in the room. It was like the air got sucked out, and then he's like, I think you guys need therapy or something along those lines. I think you guys need some mental help or and
Oh, what was the band? What was the band that you said he listened to sort of cleanse himself of our sound?
Hate,
entombed
Hatebreed.
entombed.
Yeah,
Oh, and
he was like, I had to drive home from the studio last night and I had to turn on Entombed just to like
as
get
a
you guys
palate
out of my head.
a palate cleanser.
and we were
That's
like,
wild.
motherfucker, you're the one
Just
who wrote Jane Doe, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ben was like, "Okay, Jane Doe," and it was like this weird,
I need therapy.
yeah, it was this weird like Monty Python like experience because then he's like, "Well, I'm better now," you know.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Like, yeah, that's why you're doing stuff with Chelsea Wolf. Whoa.
yeah, yeah, he was so like his humor is so dry and like it hits you like a brick wall and
Yeah, he's
it's so funny because I didn't have a case for my bass guitar, so I was literally just
I was
walking.
hoping you tell this.
I was walking the streets of Salem with just a fucking bass, like just holding it and just like fucking around with it until I like walked to the studio. Because sometimes parking in Salem is horrific, so sometimes I would have to walk quite a ways, and I just like just had it just as if I'm playing it, and I walk in and he's like, I forgot. Oh, dude, what did he hit me with? He was like, well, at first he's like, dude, where's your case? And I'm like, I don't have one. I was like, I can't afford one. He's like, dude, get a fucking case. And then the next time I come in and I actually get a case. I actually listen to him, and he's like, "Oh, you're moving up in the world, huh?" And it was just like just little tidbits like that. We went
Ben
out.
and I were dying laughing. You just like the almighty Kurt spoke, and then as soon as he was like so embarrassed that he didn't have a case, he had to go out and buy one. And it just
Immediately. Yeah.
so
Yep.
fun.
I'm like, I don't care. I'll max out like a fucking credit card. And
I actually saw Converge for the first time. Like I've been listening to them for years, but I never got to see them. And I saw them for the first time at like a metal fest recently in Worcester, and it was incredible. They played like all the songs I wanted to, and it was so trippy to actually see them play. I'm like, oh, that's my buddy Kurt.
my
Like
buddy.
he's just like ripping. But yeah, it was awesome. But so yeah, there's a lot of stories. I mean, we lived in the apartment above the studio, so we just shut the world out for like 2.5 weeks, and we did not get as much done as we thought we would in 2.5 weeks. We didn't even finish the music, and we had to come back, and then we had to record, and then we just decided it took us months to decide, but we decided to record the music, record the vocals ourselves, and then go back for mixing sessions and doing kind of like little details and finish. We finished the music later on and did little went in there and did smashed pots and pans and did some maracas and random stuff like later on. But yeah, it was we definitely underestimated the amount of time, and part of it was I think just never really making a record this long, and also I think yeah, it's like when you're having a good time, it's just like you're I don't know, it's not like it didn't feel like work.
I don't know. I think the attention to detail for the instrumentation was worth it. And
Oh yeah.
I think he really was pushing for you guys to record vocals on your own. And I was like and he has a very valid point, and he does express this to a lot of bands that go in there. And you know, he could he could be that guy that is like it's like, oh yeah, yeah, pay an arm and a leg to record vocals and blow your voice out within the first 2 days, and you got 3 days left, and like good luck. But he didn't. He was like, I'll tell you what microphones to get. All you need is to really like just kind of pad up like your area. And he's like, I've had plenty of people do it, and it's kind of the best way because you're doing it on your own time, and you're not wasting all this money because you're trying to have like a recovery day, and then what are you gonna fucking do? He was really thinking about us, and he was thinking about, we're a DIY band, um, and it was a good call. It was a good call because you guys were able to just like kind of fart around and
Yeah, that's all we were
do
doing.
whatever
We're just farting around.
do whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, it allowed you to like be able to express, and I think the pressure of doing that in a studio, you know, vocals are a little more vulnerable, you
No,
know.
I'm very glad we decided to record on our own. I think we were just having not done it professionally before, we were like dragging our feet with that decision. And then once we made the decision and actually started doing it, it was the right call because then we could try things and yeah, not feel that pressure. And we're doing a bunch of different vocal styles. Yeah, like screaming our heads off. Then you can just like take a rest day or whatever. So
for
Yeah.
sure.
Ben, didn't you get sick too, recording the
he
vocals?
he was sick
The
like the
whole
whole
time,
time. He was
the
sick
whole
the whole
time,
time.
dude. Like it's that's like that's the one thing where I hear I mean, I love how it turned out, but that's the one thing where I'm like, it's not 100% on the screams. I mean, the singing. I mean, you can kind of. I don't want to say you can fake that, but it doesn't require the same guttural effort. So I think, on the flip side, it does give it this sort of desperation that's kind of cool, and it sounds a little busted. So
I guess.
yeah, just chug. Yeah, I just chug tea the whole time.
Yeah.
Hopefully, comes out good.
Yeah, we had that throat spray that we used up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, honestly, that cover, I was going to ask you guys about the vocals. You went right into that for me, so thank you for that. But looking back at that whole process, whether, like you said, you had your vocals on your own, you did the instrumentation in the studio, stuff like that. For each of you guys, when you look back on that process, from day one of songwriting up until finally mastering and just getting the final mix and everything, what was probably the most difficult part of the process for each of you guys?
Everything.
Mixing and mastering. Mixing and mastering.
Yeah.
I think that's always the most difficult part, because it's every band I've been in, because you can give and take when you're writing and being like, oh, like if I have an idea and Mike doesn't like it in the moment, he's like, I don't really like that. I'm like, okay, and vice versa. But with mixing, it's like we've made this thing together that we love, and we all hear, it differently, and we all have different goals and aspirations. And so it can just take forever, and you just get in your head about, I want this to be a little this, and I want this, and then you're, emailing each other and calling each other, and we just, for me, it was just a very long process, and we ended up, Mike ended up remixing it with, Dante, and I gave him notes and stuff, but yeah, it was just a long process, and but I will say, like, the guy that we mastered it with, Carl Saff, he's fucking amazing, and he got it. He got what we wanted very fast. So just mixing. I shouldn't have said mastering. Carl got our vision very fast, and it took a couple times, but it was very, very minor changes to what he originally did.
Yeah.
And we're also pretty neurotic about what we like to hear. And I think that goes with the songwriting, that goes with, what do we like hearing in an album? And that's healthy, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all very similar. So, I mean, this is like the ideal band for me in a certain sense, because you guys are like some of my closest friends, and I feel like our musical chemistry, I don't really want to play with anybody else because they're just not as good. And we're all very similar in the sense that we can write really fast, and we're very, very, very like creative, and all kind of on the same page of like where we're going with the song or something. But that means we also have very similar weaknesses. And with the similar strengths, the similar weaknesses are, yeah, like Dante just said, like we can just overthink things, or uh it's really hard for us to sort of finish what we're starting, because you get that, I don't know if it's like a dopamine rush from like the initial creativity, and then like finishing it is like not fun. Maybe that's just me. Like that's how it is for me, is I've done that for years, where I get this burst of energy, I write a bunch of shit, and then I either don't finish it, or I get right to the end of when I'm finishing it, and then I'm like, don't care anymore. And so we like almost got to that point a few times with this record, and just didn't let that stop us. And I would agree. I think the end portion was tough, and um yeah, I think we just made some decisions really quickly with mixing that I had to go back on. So I didn't remix the whole thing. I just made some major decisions were just like needed at the last minute, and I'm glad we did that. And then um we were kind of on our own timeline with this thing, and it ended up being what the record needed. It didn't need a record label telling us what to do and when to do it, because it just, I don't think, would have been the same thing.
No,
um but yeah, that was definitely tough towards the end, and everything else came together really, really uh fluid. Like even just like making the artwork, and like editing videos, and writing actual songs and all of that. It's like even different vocal takes, like a lot of that came together pretty smooth.
Yeah. No, that's great. And, you know, finally all that getting done, that whole process all the way from 2017 when everything kind of was first starting up until 2025 with the release of the album. Looking back at like January 10th when the lead single Charcoal Lions first came out, what was that like for you guys to finally put something out there, finally see that kind of completed work come out?
Mm. feel like
Yeah.
you got something to say, Dante.
Well, I don't know. Well, because it's like it's been your baby for so long, right? And um, all of our babies, it's just like, I think we're like we had this conversation so many times. Dude, what if everyone fucking hates it? And I'm like, cool. Like I think we all like were kind of, you know, erring on the side of caution of like, yeah, what if this truly just sucks and we're just in our heads about it? Because you got to believe in what you're creating, right? You have to actually you have to really really like what you're doing, and we like it. But when we release something, it's up to everyone else for their own interpretation, and it was pretty surprising. It was very very strange, like to let something go, and see how people receive it. And it's been with Charcoal Lion specifically. Um, we got a lot of really good receptions from people very close to me because we didn't have a lot of online presence, so that's kind of how it started, was just immediate people, and then just kind of caught on. It was pretty rad.
Yeah, it's almost like when you love a movie so much that you watch by yourself and then you try to show it to a friend and then you're suddenly watching a different movie because you're seeing it through their eyes suddenly and you're noticing all these things that you never noticed before. It's like I've heard these songs 1,000 times. And then as soon as it was out in the world, I'm like, oh, my mom's gonna listen to this. I'm like hearing it through everyone else's ears, and I'm like, oh, this is just a different thing. It like changes the way I heard it in a way. Um,
Yep.
Cool. I mean, it almost breathes new life into it because there's so many like stages of the music um, that I had lived with it, and I was just shocked that I wasn't like totally, utterly sick of it. I was like, oh, I still like this record. That's a good sign. So yeah, I mean, it was cool to have that initial kind of yes, something's finally out, and um, it's like a little bit, I don't know, yeah, there's like a little bit of nerves, and I immediately regretted the decision of like what song to put out for a single. We were like talking about that for like as if it made any difference at this point. It's already out, just things like that. We were like, why did we do this one? It just like it's just like uh yeah, I think it wasn't until I think Spoken in Time putting that out second that I think it started sort of like people started to sort of react to like, oh, okay, this band is um they're maybe getting a better feel for like what they're in for. Um but yeah, I don't know. What about you, Ben?
I felt very excited to release it. I think I was just ready, especially when we finished mastering the album, and then we made the artwork for the album, which was the opposite of mixing and mastering it. It was just very like, oh, we want to do this. We came up with an idea very fast. We barely thought about it. We bought a couple things, went in the woods, shot it. It was very very freeing to just create something very fast and not overthink it. Like we did the mixing, and then I think similarly, my state of mind when we put the music out is I was kind of just ready for it to be out, and I was just excited. Tyler, I don't know what your experience was listening to it, but I was just excited to put that out, Charcoal Lions. And then a lot of my friends, I think, were just expecting a Kurt Ballou record. They were expecting like a Converge heavy ass, just amazing heavy ass thing, and like there's some of that, but like I think putting this for me, like I think I was a little like, oh, I wonder if people think this is what it's going to sound like. And then putting out like Terror Poem, Spoken at Time, it's kind of was fun to sort of see people be a little confused and like what is this band's thing? And then in my head, personally, like I think the best songs were not picked as singles. And then for people to have that experience of listening to it front to back, because we talked about doing just really leaning into the math core. Let's just put out all these heavy songs, Harbor Delirium, Ransack Soul, like just really lean into that. And then we we talked about giving them a little, giving people who are listening to us a little bit of everything, you know, a little bit of the R&B, a little bit of the heaviness. We ended up taking that route. I don't know if that was the right road to take, but it was fun. It was kind of fun to see the confusion. But I think when we finally put the album out, the way it's sequenced, I hope it's not confusing. I think it's sequenced in a way where it kind of makes sense how jarring things are. Like you're hearing singing all at once, and then you're hearing Terror Poem. It could be like, how is this going to work? When I think you listen to the album, hopefully it makes sense the way it flows. Um, but yeah, it was exciting for me. I think I was ready for to put the album out and just see what if people liked it, if they didn't like it. You know, I was excited.
It was
Yeah.
strange to see
Oh,
them out as singles, like because we've experienced it as an album, and we also like had our hands in the pot so long to like curate it as an album. Like we are avid album listeners. We so appreciate a like a well thought out album. It's a chef's kiss, you know, and I think that's what we appreciate the most. And putting them out as singles was weird, you know, because like you said, you can only get so much from each single. But yeah, I don't know. What was your experience, Tyler?
yeah, so I can speak into it. So I found out about you guys after the album came out. So like literally, I think it released and I probably listened to it on that Sunday after, so March 9th or whatever. Um, and like you said, I think the big part about the album is the sequencing. Because it was funny looking back, because I like to, if I listen to an album through it the first time, I like to look at what artist chose as a single to just kind of see, what the plan of attack was in that regard. Um, and the hard thing with this album, from what I've told, is like the sequencing makes, a difference here. It's a lot of genres at once, but the way that it transitions into it kind of sets you up for those moments in a way. And it's not as jarring as it was like if you were to get Charcoal Lions and then hear Terror Poem 3, I mean, that's how it is on the
Right.
album, but like just over time, have one release and then later on hear that and just be like, all right, what's going on here? But my experience was, I mean, everything just flowed really well. That's kind of what I got from it, was just seeing, all the different genres just kind of work together and how it all came to be just this huge, just like, it's a long album, but it flows so well that it works so well together that it doesn't feel like it's a chore to get through, you know? It all mends together. I think what caught me immediately was Harbor Delirium, where it does start off with that sort of ethereal feeling and just immediately starts slowly bringing you into that chaos of the album. And that's kind of what hooked me from there. I was like, all right, well, I got to listen to all this now. I mean, I can't stop here. So I thought it was great. I can go on and on about specific songs, but this is not a review. This is an interview. And so kind of stepping into that, like you said, a big part of it is sequencing and you have all those moments that work together. But for you guys, for each of you guys, looking back at the record, I mean, you guys sat with it for so long, you knew the songs like the back of your hand at that point. Once it's released and, now it's been out for 3 weeks now, looking back at it, is there a particular, whether it's a song or like a specific section of a song that really stands out to you as something that you are most proud of when it came to the writing process and kind of recording this section?
Hmm.
You go, Mike.
Um, I'm really happy with Ransack Soul. I think that it just kind of has its own feel. I just there's something about it. I think it came out close. I don't know, maybe closest to what I was envisioning. Um, and I don't know. I just sort of tried things I had never done vocally. And I felt like the lyrics kind of were sort of. I felt like I was kind of transcribing. I didn't really feel like I was writing anything. It just sort of like So it's like satisfying in a different way for me, that song in particular. But there's a lot of moments in there that I really like. I mean, the end of Terra Poem was the last thing that I wrote on the record. That was something that was kind of a transition out of kind of what that song was about. It was sort of transitioning to sort of update a certain feeling, and that I just did in like one take. And it was just sort of a throwaway idea that that's another moment that I think it's natural when you sit with something for a long time and then you have a new idea, the new things kind of stand out to you because you haven't heard it 1,000 times. So that was something that's a fun moment, I think. Um, and I really love how Never Tame came together, mainly just because that was the most Frankenstein song, if you can believe it, because it feels like it's pretty straightforward. It's like I think it's the same tempo the whole song, but that was one of those voice memo hodgepodge like cobble it together over time. And so that's a song that like hearing it all together feels more satisfying because we didn't, write it and play it the way that it's structured um initially. It was sort of like these different ideas. So um yeah, I don't know. I mean, I love the ending. I love Barn Owl. It's just like that's just probably my favorite song to play. And I don't know. I mean, there's different moments that um are satisfying for different reasons, but what about you guys?
I think I was the most like happy with just how uniform it seemed to me to be, and then how uniformed it seemed to other people. And I think I'm very, 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 very critical of lyrics, and I think again with Mike, it's just like I actually really, really love his style and his lyrics. It happens to be very similar to my style. It's very abstract, stream of consciousness kind of stuff, which I love. And it almost, I don't really know. To me, it almost seems like there. It doesn't seem like there's two lyricists. I think the way the album flows, like the lyrics they all work very well together. Um, I've had several people, and this very really surprises me, like not be able to distinguish Mike and I's voice at times from each other, which I think is actually really cool because there's this symbiosis going on. So I think, like Dante said, I am an album guy, and I think I'm very happy with how it just kind of all works together with our chemistry. Because sometimes I put out albums and just been like, man, this album's awesome, but we're really musically, me and this person are really button heads here. This isn't really, and I just think with this, it just feels very fluid. It works really well. It doesn't really seem like we all seem like a unit, and I'm very happy with that. But I will say, in terms of like specific moments, I agree with Mike. Like, you're always into the thing you just wrote, but as we wrote this album, I mean, we fell in love with every single one of these songs. There's nothing on here that was like a throwaway or filler. Like each and every single one, as we wrote it, we were like, I love this song. This is incredible. So all of them, but yeah, like I definitely think for me, like Jazz a Jag was, or it's not called Jazz a Jag. That's what Tyler, we have this list of like of scratch track names, and I still call them that. Like we changed the names of the songs at the
It's
last.
funny that you say that because New Shape Galaxy slash Celestial Eyes is Jazzajag, what he's talking about. And I think lyrically, I mean, not to, I mean, we're gassing each other up a little bit here, but lyrically, I think it's the best lyrics on the album. And Ben wrote those lyrics. And like, I love just even reading through them. Um, and yeah, that song is a high point for sure. But yeah, that's New Shape Galaxy.
Yeah, so for me, like that's the song that I'm just really into right now, particularly like one of the last things we did on the album there's like a jazzy part right in the middle, and Mike's doing a little almost a spoken word kind of fucked up Dr. Seuss part, and that was, if I'm not mistaken, one of the last things we recorded, one of the last ideas, and it just came together. It just feels like it was supposed to be there the whole time,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I love that song the most right now. I probably listen to it more than anything. But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot of like really weird moments that weren't really they weren't. I don't know. The thing I really appreciate about these guys, and I so there are a lot of things that happened in the studio that were not on the demo tracks. And the thing that you got to learn about this thing, the Jackal Twins, is like you can't like as the music speaks as like expect the unexpected. I feel that way as well throughout not just the writing process and finishing a song, but there's an evolution to each one of these tracks. So when I was met with a certain drum part that was not exactly like the demo that I had to reference, something new came out, which was scary, but it was also very exciting. So it's almost like, yeah, there's certain moments where I had to really be on my toes in the studio. And I'm like so proud of some of those moments that I'm like, wow, like, I think I overwrote a lot of what I was going to put on this record. Like some of the most simple, not most simple, but like parts that actually needed to fit the vibe, I had overwritten quite a bit, and it like really the pressure allowed me to be grounded in like, okay, like this is the part that needs to be here. It needs to be here. It needs to exist here. Um, like I can't remember. Like all the songs and parts kind of blur together sometimes. So because I do listen to them as an album, um, but I think it is we called it Punk Song Forever, Sweet Huntress. Um,
Yeah,
it's
that was another one that Kurt's like,
like
what about this song is
is
punk?
yeah, right. Like before it transitions into the second part, um, there's this almost like Mike Patney kind of type vocal uh, on there, and with the rain sticks, like they did a lot of like percussion, like alternative percussion stuff. After I had to head home for something after I was done with bass, and they used rain sticks. They used you guys can like go through the list of stuff, but there's just like ear candy in there that I'm like, yeah, like that really made this like special. You know what I'm saying?
I think one of my favorite bass parts that you do, because I literally don't know what you're doing, Dante, is in the noodly part in Television Dream,
Oh, what part
where it goes into where it does that. It basically does that same riff, and it does in like three different time signatures. That's like that noodly one. When it goes to the clean part and you're kind of matching with the drums. I don't know what you're doing there, and like it's fun. It's like fun to listen to because I'm just like, yeah, I don't get it. Like it's just your choice of to what you chose to do over that part. I'm like, yep, nobody would think to do that except except Dante.
that
Like,
that was one of those parts that I had to buckle down and because the drums were similar but not exact when they were recorded in the studio. So and what I had written was like I just wasn't happy with the way it was aligning with the drums at that time. And so I listened to that thing for hours the night before we had to track that thing. And yeah, I'm proud of that one too. There's all like what I was referring to in Sweet Huntress. Um, it's like that part, but then when
yeah,
it slows down, to me, what Ben is playing is very much a swing time beat, like a halftime swing beat. So I wanted to swing with it. So what I'm playing there on bass is very like it's very much a feel thing. I don't know. I was just like, yeah, all right, I like this. It grooves, but it also has this weird like R&B swing thing going on. And I think that's something that I pick up on a lot throughout the album is Ben's appreciation for R&B and hip hop. And that allowed me to really like have a place that's unique in the bass world.
Mm.
Oh, I mean, that's awesome. And I know it's kind of a tough question of just asking a particular moment and something that you spent so long with, but no, I mean, those are all like phenomenal moments, and a lot of them do stand out to me as well. Looking towards the future for you guys, this album came out, people are loving it, at least from what I've seen on Sputnik, and other reviews kind of around, people are loving it, and just wondering what's next, what's kind of in store for you guys next.
Yeah,
That's
well,
the question, Tyler.
so we don't know. I mean, we didn't our plan here with this was, all right, let's just finish this record, and then finishing the record turned out to be, you know, more of a feat than we had planned on, and then, finishing it, releasing it. I mean, we're in different places in our lives than when we first started the band, and for me, I could speak for me myself. I want to, play some shows. I don't know if I want to do a big tour, at least maybe not yet. But yeah, it's just sort of it's cool to see it have any people, anybody enjoying it. Right now we're looking into the possibility of pressing it to vinyl and doing some merch, and we don't even have any of that. So it's just like sort of like releasing the album, seeing how it's received, and then kind of going from there. I mean, we have a whole other probably 2 albums worth of stuff we're like sitting on. So I'd love to just make another record. I yeah, I've like the stuff we were writing once this record was done, maybe even more excited. So I'm just like I'm like already like, oh, let's go to the studio again. Like, how can we make money back to go in the studio? Because literally like never made money doing anything creative like that. But um yeah, so pressing vinyl would be cool. Playing some shows. Um that yeah, like nothing, there's no like huge plans, I think, other than that. Um, yeah, what do you guys?
No big announcements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, like Mike said, like we all like, you know, we all have, we have families and we have like, jobs and just like a bunch of, other things. And I think at this time in our lives, like, we've all been in bands and like, either toured or played lots of shows or just made tons of albums and stuff. I think at this time in our lives, we were just wanting to make the album and then just kind of see like if it got a response. Which, like, I mean, Tyler, you mentioned like there's like a decent amount of listeners for the fact that we've only existed a little over 2 months on the internet. No label, no backing, no budget being poured into that. Like, so we're very, very grateful for that, and like really amazed by that, and thankful for that. And so I think for me, like my take on it was just like, let's put the album out and let's see what happens. Let's see if there's a response and a demand for more, and if there is, we'll go from there. And so I think since we put the album out, uh we've just been like taking a little break and just posting things here and there. We poured a lot of time and effort into promoting it ourselves and just getting on Reddit and getting on Instagram like crazy, and just like anywhere we could, just like trying to get or trying to let people know that this is going to come out, because like I said, it was all DIY. So I think the last couple of weeks we've just been like kind of resting, just getting our minds together, and I think I think, yeah, like that's a conversation we're gonna have, and we'll figure that out. But I mean, Mike mentioned the vinyl thing. I would love to press it to vinyl. So I don't know if you saw that we did post just to see like anybody want this, you know? And so yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at right now. We're just like feeling it out. Is like, is this something that there's a desire for from other people, or was this like a cool project that we made that we love, you know? So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
I would side with you guys. I have nothing else to say.
The wallpaper looks so much better with the lights on. It's tripping me out even more.
It is very
Um,
true.
yeah,
Love it.
it's
Well,
I'm laying in bed here. Just kind of, it's like I'm inviting you guys over.
Maybe.
well, guys, thank you so much for being willing to do this with me. I very much appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for setting it up. It was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And, everyone on Sputnik, whether you're listening or reading this interview, please, if you haven't listened yet, go listen to Cusco. Go show your support for them. They're awesome. And see you next time on the interview.